Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2024 WWE Bad Blood instant analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, a little later than usual, but still soon after the conclusion of WWE Bad Blood to break down everything that happened on the company's final domestic premium live event of 2024. Vintage Chris Vanini is, of course, along for the ride, and we have an absolute ton to break down before this show is out. So the Silver King is not wasting any time off the top. Allow me to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King, Vintage, and Getting Over. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast as well for episode drops, news analysis highlights, all of that good stuff. If you already follow us, you got to vote in the pre and post show polls for WWE Bad Blood, and we will be factoring that into our final segment, the overall grade for Bad Blood. Please also remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major television show, and exclusive news and analysis posts on Friday. Get it all. Support Getting Over. We would greatly appreciate it. Buymeacoffee.com/getting over. Now, because this is an instant analysis episode, we do something special here. We crack open a cold one. Unfortunately, the Silver King is not feeling well today, really this weekend, so I'm still going to crack open a cold one, just of a different variety. What I actually have tonight is a Coca-Cola Oreo limited edition zero sugar beverage.
Ooh.
I've actually had this before. I bought an extra case. I liked it so much, so giving myself a little treat at the end of the night. No alcohol this time. Vintage, what do you got over there?
I've heard really good things about that Coke. I've not had
delicious.
it. So I assume it lived up to what I've been hearing.
It is fantastic. And the fact that it is zero, so it has no sugar. I mean, I don't really drink soda in general or diet beverages in general, but it's guilt-free because there's nothing in it. So,
all right. Well, I've got, so it's been a crazy day of college football. And in honor of Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt beating number 1 Alabama, I've got a New Mexico State Aggie Rita, a canned raspberry margarita from New Mexico State, where Diego Pavia played last year.
Interesting.
They sent me this, and it's actually pretty good. New Mexico State has got a couple of liquors and beers out there that are surprisingly really good. So shout out to New Mexico State, whose best players and coaches from last year are now on Vanderbilt's. And they went and beat Alabama. So shout out to Jerry Kill and the group.
By the way, we're going to talk about wrestling. Just give me like 30 seconds, 60 seconds here, Chris. Wild ass day of college football and sports in general. The Silver King can just tell you, at the same time, I had to watch Bad Blood, the New York Yankees' first playoff game, and my Florida Gators play UCF in the Swamp, kick their asses. That was great. You cover college football still. I don't. I've changed some of my disciplines in what I cover for my job. But you still cover it. And this was upset city on what seemed to be the weakest week of the college football season.
Yeah, crazy day. But your Yankees won, your Gators won. So you got to be feeling pretty good about all that.
You know what? Coming out of the shitty Dolphin season, yeah, I feel pretty good tonight. The question is, did WWE Bad Blood live up and deliver a win as well? That is the question we're going to answer right here. And that is an absolutely perfect transition, if I do say so myself. And I do, because guess what?
This is my show. My show.
Anyway, let's get to the WWE Bad Blood instant analysis. We're going to go match by match, tell you what happened, our thoughts, of course, on what happened. We'll give grades for the matches. And at the end, we will give an overall grade for WWE Bad Blood. We will also discuss what we believe might be happening going forward in some of these major storylines. Some concluded, most seemingly on Saturday night did not. Before we get to the first match, which will be the main event, I just wanted to say off the top, this was one of the better opens to a WWE Premium Live event we've actually had this entire year. All the ladies in WWE were thematically dressed in red. They looked amazing. Samantha Irvin sang God Bless America, which was outstanding. Backing track was a little rough, but she's spectacular. Then there was a really fun movie-style trailer featuring Triple H, Cody Rhodes, and Metro Boomin. Had some funny lines in that. We got actual pyro at the start of the show, which has long been a PLE complaint of mine. Also, Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi all hosted. There was fire shooting ringside as Hell in a Cell lowered. Basically, what I'm trying to get at, it was a perfect open to the show, at least for me, Chris.
Yeah, they really made it feel like a special event, even though it was a U.S. arena show. And we actually haven't had any of those for a while. I like the song choice. I like the thematic stuff. I would have loved to have had a unique set, instead of the normal Raw SmackDown set, but it did just feel different, and that's a positive. I will say though, the mini movie with Triple H and Cody and Metro Boomin, I didn't get it. It was kind of weird. Like, they were making jokes about it, but then it didn't lead to anything. Like the stakeout and all that. I was
so the whole theme of that was just they're doing a throwback and old school, so they did an old school throwback stakeout to do wrestling in Atlanta. That's really all it was. It was not deep. It was very surface level.
But they weren't staking anything out either. I was expecting
they were looking at the arena, right? Exactly. Yeah. It would have been cool if something happened. Someone came out of the arena, or they were able to attack someone. But yeah, there was no resolution to it. But to your other point about this being a domestic arena show, it's actually the first one in 11 months. Survivor Series War Games at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois. And if you want to say non-Big Four, then it was literally the first one in a year, Fastlane. Same week last year at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. So, those shows aren't happening anymore. So if they're going to do them, clearly they tried to do this, make it feel special with Fastlane. They had those two cars out there that were just sitting at the top of the stage for really no reason. Pat McAfee was there, so on and so forth. But in Atlanta, they had a lot more to work with from a celebrity standpoint, and they definitely took advantage of that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's get to the main event of Bad Blood, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes against Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Cody got a special entrance with the Arkansas Pine Bluff Marching Band playing around the ring. Go Golden Lions, by the way. Then production slightly botched his actual entrance, and they played again alongside his music, which I thought was a little weird, but it was still an awesome atmosphere. Now, I want you to tell me if you disagree, Chris. I found it utterly ridiculous that Roman also got a special entrance with a band and singers just because Cody did. For Rhodes, WWE was capitalizing on a really cool college football moment on their last American show of the year. For Reigns, it's just a tag team match. Why did he need all of that? That was either a pure ego move, or it was WWE stupidly thinking that Cody would outshine Roman with his entrance, so they needed to make them equal. That was my take. I was wondering if you agreed with that.
Yeah, that was my thought too. Especially Roman's entrance at WrestleMania 40 was cool because the band was the lead. I couldn't even hear the band playing Roman's theme.
I know.
They were.
Yeah.
Because it's already an instrumental version of the theme, which I don't really like. I've said before, I wish he'd go back to his main entrance for this. The Arkansas Pine Bluff thing is funny because that did go viral back in week 1 of college football. But when it first happened and I first saw the tweet about it, I sent it to Greg Domino at WWE PR because I thought it was cool. And within a few minutes after that, Triple H tweeted it. And then it became this whole big thing. So I don't know if I had any role in that or not, but it was really cool to see that band there. It was a lot. It took forever.
It did.
And they had to do it a couple of times. And it was weird to do in a stadium, an arena show. Also I liked it. It was just over the top and they didn't both need it.
So you're taking full credit for it is what you're saying here.
I'm taking full credit for it.
Understood. All right, let's get to the match. So Cody started after an extended discussion after the first bell. Jacob didn't go down on a disaster kick. Roman egged on fuck you solo chants. First part of this match legitimately took 10 minutes and nothing happened. Rhodes did Dusty's bionic elbows and shimmy before a Cody cutter on Fatu. Jacob caught him with a pop-up Samoan drop off a solo distraction before the heels did a really cool Irish whip double hip attack in the corner. He was singled out, Cody was, for a while as they teased and prevented Reigns doing a hot tag. Rhodes got knees up on a swanton bomb with Roman getting a huge pop coming in. Superman punch countered into Samoan spike, countered into crucifix. Pinning combination by Reigns. I don't believe he's ever done that before. Then he hit the Superman before Fatu interrupted the spear. He hit a moonsault, Jacob did, followed by a solo Uso splash for a broken fall. Cody threw Jacob into the steel steps and dodged him through the barricade, but Fatu just flipped out, throwing chairs and shit. So Cody took him out with a crossroads ringside, yet he respawned again. So Cody pointed at Roman, and Cody Rhodes, the WWE champion, did a splash off the effing ring post through the announce table. I definitely did not have that on my bingo card. Reigns dominated Sikoa. He was set for a spear when the Tongans, of course, distracted. That allowed Solo to spear him for a false finish. Sikoa screamed at Reigns that he was supposed to be next in line, only for us as viewers to see a man in a hoodie and a bandana mask standing suddenly near the Tongans. After 2 super kicks, Jimmy Uso in a bling blow chain revealed himself. Reigns speared Sikoa on the distraction, got the win. Reigns set up kind of bewildered, actually emotional. Jimmy said it was all for him. They hugged each other. I never would have guessed that Jimmy would get that kind of reaction. It was one of the true highlights of this match, really of the show, along with Cody's splash. The post-match with Reigns feeling emotional that his family got his back when he really knows that he wronged them for so long, that was excellent. His expressions and selling of all that emotion, it really might have been the best part of this entire segment. The match itself, it was totally forgettable. Maybe it's because I was start and stopping during football. Chris, you can tell me if I'm evaluating it wrong, but it was extremely slow and plodding. Felt like they were filling time and leaning on crowd reactions rather than actually being dedicated to putting on a banger main event. It's not the end of the world, but given how Bad Blood started and then progressed, it left a lot to be desired as an actual main event wrestling match. So the entertainment was certainly higher here, but for the match, I'm at 3 stars B-.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of cool spots, like the Cody splash was pretty wild, but it was kind of a by the books WWE tag team match otherwise, which is all I expected from this.
But dragged out to be 10 minutes longer than it needed to be, right?
Yeah, it's a Raw main event you do on pay-per-view, and you get some more time for that. Jimmy coming back was really cool. I'm really glad he got a big pop. Roman hugging him, big pop. And I'm trying not to be upset that the thing I thought should have happened didn't happen.
In terms of us thinking the heel should have won?
In terms of a couple things. One, thinking the heels should have won. And 2, that Jimmy coming to save Roman would have helped kind of more in a desperate situation rather than winning a match that just kind of has no significance.
Fantastic point.
And like I'd always imagine Roman's getting beat down 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever. Jimmy comes out, makes the save, the heels run off and they hug. But like tying it into the match, it made the match feel bigger in the end because we got some things afterward. But I was like, it could have been a lot better.
I know we complain. Sorry to interrupt you. I
Yeah.
know we complain about like the referee knockdown spots, but if the referee was knocked down and they're beating on Roman 4-on-1 and then Jimmy saves, is that better for you?
Yeah. As opposed to just kind of beating up the people who came down from backstage, and like again, it was very typical by the numbers.
It's like he shouldn't have needed that much help in that moment, basically.
Yeah, it was fine, but to me, it wasn't as big of a moment as it could have been. And what's been so good about the Bloodline for so long is that their biggest moments are some of the biggest moments we've had in WWE, and this one just didn't feel like that.
So that all wrapped up, and then further after the bell, Cody finally entered the ring again, coming out of that splash with he and Roman giving each other like respectful glances and nods. The new bloodline attacked Rhodes from behind and was prepared to do more, with Reigns kind of reluctant to help him, watching from the ramp. Jimmy convinced Roman otherwise. They ultimately ran in for the save, easily dispatching all four guys. Reigns picked up the WWE title. He stared at it longingly, and ultimately he handed it to Rhodes with a nod of respect. And literally the second that Cody held it in the air and you think the show's ending, The Rock returned to a thunderous pop. And yes, he was holding the People's Championship. He raised an eyebrow, then counted 1, 2, 3 in the air on his hand. Before his music hit again, he made a slit throat gesture, and then he just left. So I loved the stuff with Reigns saving Rhodes and Jimmy kind of saying to Roman, hey, you promised him, you gave your word, you have to do this. Like, it was almost the moment where it finally clicked and Roman wasn't a babyface because he's going against the heel bloodline. He's a babyface because he's a babyface now. So I thought that was really well done. The Rock, I mean, it was great that he showed up. It was also a little underwhelming. Like, okay, he reminded Cody that he pinned him at WrestleMania. And, you know, like, I'm glad the Atlanta crowd got to see him because, you know, spoiler alert, Bad Blood left a decent amount to be desired overall. But this was very much something you do in like the final minute of SmackDown, not at the end of a premium live event. But I get it. The Rock is available when The Rock is available, and better to have him do it here than not do it at all, obviously. I'm just saying it would be more compelling if we knew Rock was going to show up on SmackDown this Friday. But he's filming in Georgia. The show's in Greenville, South Carolina. I highly doubt he will actually be there. It's at least possible, and maybe I'll retract this if he does show up. I just wish there was a little bit more meat on the bone. I get that you want to leave people wanting more, but you got to give me a taste. I feel like I didn't even get a taste.
I actually didn't mind this part. I didn't have that high of expectations. I didn't expect The Rock to get involved because we're not in WrestleMania season yet. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it as like a teaser of like, we're going to come back to this, guys. Like, give it some time. We're going to come back. Do you remember?
That's what it was.
Like
it was a teaser.
You remember? Yeah, you remember like a year ago, might have been a year ago at this time or a little bit more than a year. We got Cody and Roman face to face as they were like making entrances
with Nick Aldis right between them, separating them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we hadn't had the two of them face to face since just after Mania the year prior. And it was like and the feeling was like, ooh, and it was kind of WWE being like, don't worry, guys, we're gonna get back to this, even though they almost didn't. But that's what that felt like at the time, and that's what this felt like. Just like a little taste of like, we're gonna come back to Rock stuff. Don't worry. Maybe WrestleMania season, maybe War Games. I don't know, but I was fine with it because I didn't expect anything more from it. Yeah, and there wasn't anything else I really would have done in that moment.
Yeah, I'm not trying to poo-poo it or be negative. I'm just saying he came out and like just stood in one spot. You know, you usually want a little bit more from him. Also, we got the final boss entrance, but we didn't get the final boss entrance. We didn't get, you know, version 12.0. The last one we got with the spotlight where it was like 1000% badass. This was like half of that, I would say. So I don't know. It was cool that he was there. I'm not trying to shit on it, I promise you. I just kind of was like, oh, that's all he's doing? Okay. I kind of wanted a little bit more. Also, please remember, I saw this like 2 hours after the show ended and was starting and stopping the program. So it was like a little bit delayed. It wasn't in the moment. I wasn't like full bore WWE for 3 hours and oh my God, The Rock just showed up. So maybe I experienced it differently.
Did you already know he showed up?
I did not know that he showed up.
Okay.
It did not get spoiled for me like CM Punk at Survivor Series. Although the situation was the same. My Gators had a game at the same time, so I was pausing the show. That got spoiled for me by Gentleman Jack Crosby, for those of you who remember him. But this did not. So
that is the same situation, though, where CM Punk just came back, walked out, and that was it.
Yes, but CM Punk hadn't been there in 10 years. It was in Chicago, and it was wild. Also, he made gestures, and he jumped in the crowd. Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. You remember that, dude. Seth Rollins went nuts. A lot of stuff happened with CM Punk.
Fair enough.
Okay. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the booking moving forward here. Obviously, at least I think, it's going to be Bloodline and War Games. you have to figure out what that face team is going to be, because look, you got 4 dudes for heel bloodline. You need 4 dudes for face bloodline. Right now you have Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. And Chris, it just feels like Cody is intrinsically weaved into this storyline. I really don't want to see like Roman, Jay, Jimmy, and Cody, but I kind of feel like that's what we're going to get.
I feel like that's what we're going to get. Now, there is something else that happened on the show that may or may not change that, but it doesn't feel like we're anywhere close to Jay and Sammy being involved in this.
It does.
Sammy's got a world title match coming up Monday. Jay's the Intercontinental Champion. They're on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't feel like we're getting there when I feel like that's what we're supposed to do. How do you do a bloodline versus bloodline and not include
the bloodline?
Sammy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do we throw Kevin Owens and Randy Orton into this?
No way. Especially not. I mean, we have more to talk about, but not after what happened post show. But I mean, Jay, you can get in there. Jay's easy. You don't even have to build a storyline. It's Jimmy's getting beat down.
Well,
Jay saves
you
him.
do.
No. My point is Jimmy's getting beat down on a SmackDown. Jay saves him. Like, it makes sense. It's his brother.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's easy.
Yes. We didn't get that with Jimmy here. The save to close the show type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We need that with Jay.
Right. But what I'm saying is he's easy to insert. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Getting Sammy in, putting Cody in. I mean, Cody just would feel like an odd man out type of situation. It would also be another show where he's not defending the title. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. But the way if I had to put odds on it right now, Jay 100%. Cody and Sammy, it feels like one of them 50-50, but there seems to be no movement with Sammy and Cody. They got his back here, right?
Maybe Sammy loses to Gunther on Raw and he just stays away for a couple of weeks and pops up on the bloodline. Like, that would be great. That would be fantastic. That's what I want. We'll see how we feel coming out of Sammy Gunther, because he is in the middle of that thing right there, but we're also not. He's not going to win the title on Monday.
No, he's not.
You know, so how does that close, if that closes?
Okay, so we can circle back to that conversation. We'll do that Tuesday on our next WWE episode. We will see what happens on Raw Monday, if there's any additional fallout from this match or from the competitors within the match. But we already have a little bit, because there was some post-show development involving people we just talked about. First was The Rock cutting, I don't want to call it a 7-minute social media promo because he barely said anything, but here's the most notable 90 seconds of it.
The Rock is feeling a lot of things about what he just witnessed. The Rock is feeling a lot of things about what he just witnessed. The final boss, you keep that camera rolling. The final boss is feeling a lot of things. And you know why? Because there's been a bunch of bullshit that's been going on in the past 6 months. Ain't that right? Yeah. Give me some. Yeah. Come on, man. Yes, sir. All right. You a fan of The Rock?
I am.
Hell yeah, you are. What's up, brother? Rock is out.
Thank you.
Nice watch.
Thank you.
If the final boss had a sister, he'd introduce you to her. Now let's go. You want to know how the final boss is feeling about all that? The final boss will tell you. But the final boss will tell you when the final boss is ready for you to know. But here's the thing. What just happened out there, Bad Blood? Man, that was heat. Man, that was fire. Man, that was hell. But what's happening right here, this is heaven. Because it's heaven every time the final boss, his music hits. Oh, look at this one right in front of the final boss. Get a shot of him. My guy, right there. Beer and tequila on The Rock. Let's do it. Because you're The Rock's boy. And there's The Rock's hero, one of The Rock's heroes right there. Hard times. I love you. I hate your son. And look at you. Go eat some Fruity Pebbles.
Those 3 people he was referring to were Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dusty Rhodes, and John Cena. They were all on the WWE production trucks. Clearly, he didn't say much other than he'll tell us when he wants us to know. But something else happened. We got to see Kevin Owens and Cody having a conversation in the parking lot after the show, the result of which was KO attacking Cody and needing to get pulled off of him by security. This was very reminiscent of Dusty's angle back in the day with Ole Anderson in Atlanta. So a great throwback, clearly built up this way on purpose. What was cool is we only saw this from fan footage. WWE did not post it or acknowledge it on its social media channels. Due to time tonight, we'll talk more about this on Tuesday's WWE show. Make sure you subscribe if you're a first-time listener. But it was super cool for WWE to do this guerrilla style, and totally unexpected too, because KO was not otherwise at the show. And this actually, Chris, didn't develop at all Friday night on SmackDown.
I'm mixed. Like, I like the idea of doing like guerrilla type stuff like that. But if it's the Kevin Owens turn on Cody Rhodes, that's the thing I want on TV, you know? So like, I'm very curious how they handle this. It again just kind of feels like a moment that isn't a moment because of the way they did it. So like, I get the effort and I like it. By the way, the Dusty Ole Anderson thing, they beat you over the head with that during the entrances for Roman during the match. Which so much so, I was like, why are we talking so much about Dusty and Ole Anderson during Roman Reigns' entrance? What are we doing? Like, there was a lot of talk about the Omni and that kind of stuff. And if you're not like a hardcore wrestling fan, you probably like, what are these guys talking about? And so maybe that was an illusion to set up what we got there, which I hadn't thought about.
You're right from the standpoint of if KO is going to turn heel or just turn on Cody and be a tweener, whatever the case might be, you really do want that in front of a crowd so you get a crazy reaction to it. But WWE's ability to promote that all week, they get to do it on Raw Monday night, through the weekend on social media, all the way to Friday, and have people tune in and what the hell is KO going to say? How is he going to explain that? You know, they might do a segment where he apologizes to Cody, but doesn't mean it, attacks him anyway. You still get all the heat from it. There's a lot of ways that can go. I totally agree with your sentiment. At the same time, I also just love the way they did it guerrilla style and tried to do something different. We talk all the time about wrestling companies doing things the same way over and over again. It's like missionary position every single night. But no, in this case, I'm pretty excited about it. And I think KO attacking Cody organically, having a conversation at his tour bus immediately after he got saved by the Bloodline and seemed to make good with them, that makes so much more logical sense, like in the realistic world in which we live, as opposed to the kayfabe of waiting to see someone, 6 days later. That way you can tell them that you have a problem with them.
Yeah, but I'm also curious, like, what was said? It wasn't like a Kevin Owens sneak attack out of nowhere.
No, yeah, they had
like
an argument.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I am 100% like curious, obviously. It's just, again, like, I don't know. There's been a few times this year, post WrestleMania, where, they're not making a big moment into a big moment. And that was one of the things under Vince McMahon. Like, that's what the whole ship was built out of, was just do the big moment and the rest of it doesn't matter. And
right.
that
Figure it out.
That wasn't necessarily good either. But, Vince always said people remember the moments, not the matches. And I do kind of feel like we're getting a little bit away from that and trying these different things.
Yeah, well, look, just because the quote-unquote Paul Levesque era is, I don't want to just say better, because that's almost understating it, way, way, way better. It's a breath of fresh air in many ways. Doesn't mean it's perfect. And we spend many hours here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast praising what's great and criticizing what's not, right? And we're going to do that even within things are great. There can be something that is wrong. Even within things that we're disappointed in, there could be greatness. And that's what we do right here on the show. And I think that's what you're seeing in the Triple H era in totality. There's a lot of great, and there's some cracks as well, things that they can improve on, just as any wrestling company can. Now, we talked about the actual main event for WWE Bad Blood, but Chris, I think we should talk about our main event for WWE Bad Blood. And that was CM Punk against Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell. This, unfortunately, opened the show. The cell structure was mostly normal, except, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a loose chain that ran around the middle of the structure and appeared to serve no real purpose. So I was kind of confused about why it was there. McIntyre talked some shit face to face and began the brawl, missing a running shot with a wrench that Punk stabbed into Drew's head. McIntyre next tried to set up a table, but one of the leg brackets was loose, so he just ripped it off. Punk hit and, nearly blinded Drew with it, then choked him with it. McIntyre soon after hit Claymore ringside, then lawn darted him into the cage like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, drawing first blood. McIntyre legit drove the steel steps into Punk's head, saying he would end his career with his wife leaving him before digging the wrench into the open wound, getting more blood out. Punk later drilled McIntyre over the ropes with a toolbox that led to him absolutely gushing from his forehead. Full crimson mask.
I called that. I said, we
did.
talked on the preview. I said, are we going to get a crimson mask? I think we are. And we actually may have gotten 2.
I think we got 3, actually. He went full John Cena, handful of baby aspirin to thin that blood and get as much out of his forehead as possible. 2 toolbox shots and a landed go to sleep out of a really nice counter sequence sent Drew out of the ring, dragging him back inside. Punk ate a Claymore for a 2.9 false finish. The first pin attempt at nearly 20 minutes in. McIntyre went to grab the wrench, but instead tried a Claymore, which Punk dodged into a rough but completed sharpshooter throwback, Bloodstone imagery, Steve Austin and Bret Hart. Crimson mask here before McIntyre broke it with the wrench. The referee actually had to wipe blood off Drew's face with a towel. There was so much of it, and he actually got angry, I think in reality, not just in kayfabe, that he kept trying to do it. McIntyre took Punk out with the superplex through a table ringside. Drew sold a back injury, dragging steel steps into the ring with Punk hitting go to sleep for his first 2.9 false finish. McIntyre came back with white noise onto the steps, but when he tried a swinging slam, Punk caught him in the Anaconda Vice. Drew grabbed a wrench, but Punk stole it from him, jabbed him in the head like 5 times. McIntyre begged for no more, only to low blow Punk as fresh, dark blood streamed down his head. That's Crimson Mask 3, 2 for McIntyre, 1 for Punk. McIntyre appeared ready to end it all, only to instead grab a bag of bracelet beads, dumping them all over Punk. But Punk dodged a Claymore, with Drew landing spine first into the steel steps in a gnarly bump. Punk shoved beads into McIntyre's mouth in a callback, hit go to sleep, got the 1-2-3 in 32 minutes. Punk celebrated, slammed the door shut when he left, and ultimately collapsed while walking backstage, refusing medical attention at first, ultimately accepting it, even getting an oxygen mask and asking for his wife. Gruesome, epic, definitive. You simply cannot ask for more if you want Hell in a Cell to live up to its stipulation. No climbing to the top bullshit just to do it. No shit that was incongruent with what they normally do. Just 2 guys beating the ever-loving shit out of each other. Drew probably gave us the first double full Crimson Mask in modern American wrestling. I don't ever remember seeing something like that before. And while there was a lot of blood, let's not overlook that fact. This was the paradigm of what we always say here on the show. When it's rare, it's that much more special. Blood in WWE is rare. This much blood has not happened at least since the product went PG in 2008, probably well before that. Beyond the grisly nature of the match, the storytelling throughout was completely on point. There were numerous callbacks to their prior matches and key parts of the feud, such as tripping on the announce table, and not just the beads, but beads in the mouth. There were also callbacks to multiple historic wrestling moments. I only mentioned 2 of them. I got swerved with the Anaconda Vice spot. I thought that was going to be the finish. It was set up perfectly, as was the actual finish to debilitate McIntyre doing a spine bump after he was selling his back earlier. I also loved that there were limited fall attempts. The focus was on destroying one another, not winning until the very end. Punk and McIntyre, they put on an all-time feud, and they were able to end it on its highest note. It is super rare that is fully achieved. So they lived up to that expectation. They lived up to the match stipulation, and they delivered what I would consider a near flawless match, save for the sharpshooter. Even the finish was perfect because it basically encapsulated the entire feud. Top tier storytelling and in-ring psychology throughout. I even loved the selling from both guys in the post-match. This was one of the best Hell in a Cell matches in WWE history. It brought back the prestige and the relevance of the stipulation. It is a no doubt match of the year contender. It absolutely should have main evented this show 5 stars, A+.
5-star match. Everything it needed to be. So many individual thoughts on this. To start, I can't believe we didn't get a promo video before this match. Like, this is outside of the Bloodline, the best storyline WWE has done in a few years, I think.
In a decade.
Yeah, to not have like the definitive promo video package to like end it all is, if anything, deserved it. It was this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, we're starting the match now? Like, what is going on? And also, obviously, this should have main evented. It didn't because of The Rock. I get it. I don't like it.
The Rock stealing another CM Punk main event, by the way.
Yes, it is. This starts out, and I liked also, I don't know if it was new to me or what, but there was not a lot of room between the cage and the ring, which is the way it was in the beginning. You know, sometimes the Hell in the Cell got gigantic, and there was so much room between them, so it made everything feel tight.
I might be wrong, and it's very possible I am. I believe in the past they would remove the steel steps, and that created a full roundabout that you could use. And I think they left the steps in here because they utilized them in the match. And that might have made it look a little bit tighter than usual, but you are right.
Could be.
In the past, it did feel more roomy outside. Please continue.
Yeah, and so I liked that it wasn't. I didn't love commentary in the first half of this match, in that they were so like just excited because it was the start of the show, and they were calling it in many ways like a normal WWE match. And that is where Jim Ross always stood out, in that when there was something serious, he would make you feel like that. When I think it was the Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell, I think he starts off by saying something like, the pain that these two men are about to endure is inhuman. Like, setting the tone and the stakes of like what everybody's going to go through. Instead, we've got Crimson Masks here, and like Cole and Graves are not like just disgusted by what's going on. It was a little just off for me in that dynamic, but it got better as the match went on, perhaps when the adrenaline kind of came down from the start of the show. You said it as well, but to have this much blood really, really was needed for this match, and it completely felt right. There were just so many times in AEW when I would be uncomfortable with that amount of blood, whether it's a Darby Allin thing or a Moxley thing or several things in the last couple of years that they've done. I'm just like, this is too much, and it doesn't feel earned. Like, it feels like you're doing it just to do it.
Well, it happens. Sometimes it happens, 3 minutes into the start of the match, and then it's like,
here I never felt uncomfortable because it had been built up for me to expect that. Like, this is what's going to happen. They said they're going to make each other bleed. This feud's been going on since January. It's called Bad Blood. Like, it all made sense. And that really, really added to it. The toolbox shots to the head, we don't get headshots like that no more. I know, even though you put some arms up sometimes and stuff, like, it's just some straight on shots with that toolbox is pretty rough. When you mentioned the stairs, when McIntyre's having trouble picking up the stairs and then having trouble putting them into the ring, I didn't know what was going on. I thought he legitimately was having back issues. Like, if it was a sell job, it was an incredible sell job.
Absolutely.
It just, the entire thing looked awkward. Like he wasn't quite sure. He couldn't quite lift it. He didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on. But if it's a sell, again, great job on that.
To quickly interrupt you, I think it was a three-way thing. I think it was selling. I think when you're moving those steps, you have to clear the ring apron. And I don't think he did. So he couldn't get it there. So he had to reposition it. So I think he messed up a little bit. And I also just think it's awkward to carry. So, but he was selling the back. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the back job on the final missed Claymore at the end.
Hey now.
Oh man, that looked brutal. Because you're in that moment, you're thinking about the back injury McIntyre may have, and then back into the corner of the stairs on the Miss Claymore, man. And the ref goes to check on his hand, and he's like checking for like a while.
Yeah,
like,
he squeezed him like 3 or 4 times. Yeah,
yeah. So like I was like, man, that was a lot. And ultimately, Punk wins as I expected, but man, both those guys put on one hell of a show. absolutely deserved. I'm saying 5 stars as well.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more you could have asked for from this specific match itself. I would have loved the promo video. I would have liked commentary to be a little more kind of serious and gruesome. But what those two guys did, this will be up there for match of the year.
Absolutely. And again, appropriate main event for WWE Bad Blood, but unfortunately that's not what we got. A couple other items to touch on before we continue. WWE invited the girl who made the original Punk bracelet to the show. Punk actually made her a bracelet of his own, and she got to go backstage as well. So that was really sweet. Since we mentioned on the show that, she didn't really get credit, they were selling it and weren't going to pay her all that. Clearly they made it right and probably made it more than right with her. Or that was the plan all along and they just didn't communicate it with her first, whatever the case might be. Also, I meant to say this earlier. I don't know about you, Chris. I don't think we've ever discussed this on the show before. I could never blade or handle a hardway crimson mask or anything like that. I am such a baby when it comes to my own blood. I could not do most of what these guys do when it comes to actually wrestling and performing and all that stuff. But when it comes to blood, that is a no from me, dog.
Oh, I would, I don't want to get into it because it's going to make me, I'm okay with the blood, but like the slicing part is the part that makes
Yeah, I don't like that either. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't want to.
I couldn't do that to myself. A.
No.
And then B, if I had blood all over my body and it was my own, I just couldn't handle that. I mean,
I would be freaking out. Like, I'd be worried, am I losing too much blood?
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Anytime I saw a crimson mask, I always thought, my God, like how are they, like, are these guys like, okay, that's a lot of blood you're losing.
Yeah. And tonight in particular, I mean, a double crimson mask for McIntyre was it was ridiculous. As simple as that. All right.
Also, did you mention the towel and the referee at all?
I mentioned it the first time. It happened twice.
Yeah.
He had so much blood on his face. I assume it was for a few different reasons, like to help him see, to clean up the match and help them like be able to air it in the future. I'm assuming they were telling him from Gorilla, like clean his effing face off because it's all red. But he did it early, then the bleeding stopped, then it reopened, and he did it a second time. And I thought it added so much to the match. Like, the referee's trying to do his job, both in kayfabe and in reality. And McIntyre's brushing that towel away, saying, that's not the shit we're doing here. I'm going all in. So I love that gumption.
He grabs
from him.
the towel and chucks it away.
I loved that.
I was like, oh man, like he's real into this. And then there was a cut and they cut back and he did wipe some off of it.
Yes.
And it felt like he knew he had to do it. But I was wondering, like, when Drew did that, I was like, this isn't for him, clearly. I think it's more for, they don't want to have Crimson Mask the whole.
They want to be able to take some pictures from the mask and use them. They want to have some clips they can show on TV. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But no, you could see after the second time he threw the towel away, the referee like walks by him and says something, and then Drew gets the towel and wipes his face. He's probably like, Paul's not fucking around. You better wipe your damn face or something like that. So I did notice that. I did think it was funny, but also kind of badass that he's like, I'm not doing that bullshit. Get that towel away from me. So
because the crowd booed, I think, right? The crowd
did.
Booed the towel.
I think lightly, very quickly. Yeah, that was really funny. All right, let's move to the Women's World Championship. Liv Morgan against Rhea Ripley with Dominic Mysterio in a shark cage. The heels entered with a brief video on the same lowrider that's being sold as a toy. Mysterio was in the shark cage above the base of the ramp, not in the air over the ring itself, presumably because of Hell in a Cell. It was a little bit corny, with Ripley telling the crowd he's scared of heights to like sell it further. Liv worked the leg and hamstring, wrapping the knee around the ring post a few times. Ripley, amid this, hit a ripcord boot and a fisherman suplex bridge. Ripley took a nasty sunset flip powerbomb into the barricade, hitting the back of her neck. Then Liv caught her with a flying codebreaker off the ropes. It was a really strong sequence there. Ripley had a great flip-out escape of Oblivion, but Morgan avoided Riptide into the twisting crucifix driver that Corey Graves said is now called the Homewrecker, which is a top-tier name. Ripley stopped Three Amigos at 2, and then hit a Razor's Edge, plus a frog splash as Dom swung open the cage door of the shark cage, having picked the lock. I wish we got to see him do that a little bit more. Rhea got Prism Trap, then destroyed Liv into the barricade underneath Dom, even hitting Riptide on her onto the floor. Dom then fell out of the cage, but got caught by a chain and a brace on his ankle. Ripley with Morgan prone in the ring for a pinfall, instead jumped out of the ring and hit Dom one time. Then she broke the count and told the ref she had unfinished business, which he allowed. She then grabbed and beat him with a kendo stick like he was a piñata before Raquel Rodriguez ran in, trucking Ripley, leading to a disqualification. She hit the Tejana Bomb as the bell rang without any announcement. Yet Raquel put Liv over Rhea anyway, thinking the match needed to end via pinfall, and this ended with deafening silence.
Well, that was a great matchup, but the ending sucked.
Yes, it did, Michael Cole. The crowd reaction was all you needed to know. It would have been bad even if it was executed correctly. But instead, it was an unfortunate, stupid, convoluted as hell finish to a match that was bordering, as far as I was concerned, on being a banger. There are so many reasons why, starting with the referee, though at least someone somewhere, probably Paul Levesque in Gorilla, had the presence of mind to call a disqualification and not let that shit be ignored. That had to be a few missed cues and mistakes. Otherwise, no one told Rodriguez about the actual match finish. What I believe happened is Raquel came out too early, the referee saw her hit Rhea, and Triple H reacted appropriately, calling a DQ instead of a pin. She was probably supposed to come out a little bit later once the referee was checking on Dom, hit the Tejana Bomb, kill Ripley, put Liv on top of her, go away, and then the referee was going to come out and count the 1, 2, 3. That's historically the way that would be booked. But the biggest issue wasn't even the miscues and mistakes. It was the creative for Ripley, who, despite being a babyface, has historically not been an absolute moron. And instead, she made one of the dumbest moves in kayfabe that we saw in wrestling this year. Okay, she wants to beat Dom's ass. Cool. He's hanging by a foot, unable to move. He is not going anywhere. You're already in the ring with the champion dead, laid out on the canvas. Hit a second riptide, pin Morgan, become champion, and then beat the shit out of Dom after the bell as your celebration. The goal in this finish was to protect Ripley and keep the title on Morgan. Instead, it made her look like a total idiot while the champion proved completely beatable. So it not only failed to accomplish its goal, it made both competitors look worse coming out of the match. Grading a match like this is nearly impossible because I was super high on it. I was probably going toward an A-, and with a great finish, maybe even an A. And then we got the finish, and it was an abject failure in every way, both the planned creative and what was executed. So I guess I'll say 3.5 stars B because 90% of this was very much my shit. But this was a total shame to potentially cap or serve as a major point in what used to be a red-hot feud.
I loved... So Rhea gets up on the top rope, and she looks at Dom, and she does the Eddie Guerrero thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she does the hands up and down, like real quick. And the crowd on cue yells yeet, which I thought was really cool. I would not have picked up on that. I don't think if I was there.
It's insane.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That they picked up on that and a really good frog splash. When Dom fell, I know it wasn't like that far, but man, that's like a risky fall. He came out of that thing head first. And if for whatever reason that chain tied around his leg doesn't hold, he's landing on his head. Man, that was scary. I'm sure it was planned and safely done and all that, but I was like, whoa, that was kind of freaky. And it added to the moment. It really did. But then the ending, like, just like, what the heck was that? And on top of everything, like, Liv's already got a heater in Dom. Is Raquel going to be a second heater, or is this going to be the end of it? Rhea got the win via DQ, so it feels like it shouldn't be the end of it. It's really hard, I get, to book Liv beating Rhea without Dominic, but like, you could have done something else. And also, Dominic ended up not even him getting out of the cage. Everything, the whole thing was just weird. Everything about this, it's just been rough for the last couple of weeks. Honestly, there's been a lot put into these two, And I think they just kind of didn't know where to go and how to get out of it.
There were so many ways to do it, though. Like, you have Dom fall out of the cage the exact same way. Ripley goes over, punches him. You see him hand Liv something, right? The referee, goes to check on Dom because he's getting beat up, which again is stupid. Why is the referee worried about something that's not happening in the ring with the competitors who are actually in the match? But okay, you have the referee go over there. Rodriguez attacks Ripley, beats the shit out of her. Ripley still, though, is able to get up on her a little bit, gets herself back into the ring. She's about to hit Liv with Riptide, and Liv pokes Rhea in the eye with the contraption that Dom used to pick the lock. And then she hits Oblivion and pins her, and you get heat on Rodriguez, you get heat on Morgan. Ripley looks strong because she was going to fend off both of them and win, and everyone's happy. And instead, you get this clusterfuck. And it was so unfortunate and so unnecessary, and it continued this string of, again, I'm talking about what was planned booking, not what actually happened, of really smart or maybe normal people making really dumb decisions. We've seen that with referees throughout the entire month of September, and based on booking, that was planned to happen again. He was going to check on Dom for no reason whatsoever. And then you have a babyface, and you're going to say Silver King. She was blinded by rage. She hates him so much. She's hit him 30 times already over the last month. You can get the pinfall in the match and then go attack him more if that's what you really want. Go win the title back. You have two parts of your revenge, getting your title back and beating on Dom. She prioritized beating on Dom ahead of winning back the title and everything that comes with it. That should be the most important thing in her life right now, getting that championship back. The revenge part on Dom should be secondary, even if she's super mad at him. So all of that, it was convoluted. It bothered the hell out of me. WWE under, Vince McMahon, especially in 2019, you'd watch a show and you'd say 10% of this is logical. Now you watch the product and 95% of it is logical, and it is so much better. But then they go and do something like this, which is illogical, and it stands out even more of a sore thumb than it otherwise would have.
Did we figure out how Dom got out?
He picked the lock. That's what commentary said. But again, They didn't show
how.
Just show us. Well, he had a pin or something, and he picked
That's
it.
what I was waiting for. I was wondering if I was did someone toss him something we didn't know? The whole idea is that either they're not supposed to sneak something in, or maybe they do and you didn't know, but then it was just
look, didn't Chris Jericho have brass knucks or something that he dropped down? The referee ideally should be checking them up and down to make sure there's nothing there. But a pin is something you could definitely hide. I mean, you could put that in a bracelet, you could put it wherever. So that didn't bother me at all. I thought that was logical, but I thought that was logical, but they should have zoomed in. We should have seen him picking the lock at some point.
That's what I was looking for.
So that was now I did have some positive notes here because we're being really critical of this. Okay, I like I said, 90% of the match was great. I really liked the wrestling. Dom's spot falling from the cage. You mentioned this. It made me gasp. That was awesome, and I didn't want to overlook that. I'm also glad to see Raquel is back. She was dealing with her syndrome for a long time. She was never booked strong once getting called up, so the crowd just did not give a shit that she came back here, but it still could have been effective if it was booked better. Obviously, this is something I called out on the Ultimate Preview, and I'm just excited to see her. It's unfortunate how it went, but I do like the idea of Rodriguez being the heavy for Liv, someone who helps her stand up to Ripley, but now it's okay, Ripley has to overcome both of them. And that's fine. That's happened a million times before. But when is that going to happen? Is it going to be soon? Or are we going to actually get a break where Liv defends against other people while Ripley, fights with Rodriguez? I don't want this title stuck solely in this feud for the next couple months until she fights Liv again.
Yeah. And I want Liv to go off and defend the title and maybe lose it to other people. Like we said coming in, is this good? We're going to take a break from this after this? And maybe that was the plan with Raquel coming in, but we don't know yet Raquel's reasoning, and we'll have to find out on Monday.
Right. All right, let's move to the other half of this storyline. Damian Priest against Finn Balor. There were some huge spots from both guys early, including one of the best worked uppercuts you will ever see from Priest, or hear, actually, for that matter. Priest.
I thought he legitimately hurt himself.
Yeah, it was wild. Priest countered Sling Blade into a broken arrow, hitting 2 roundhouse kicks and a razor's edge. Then he pounced Balor over the announce table and did a razor's edge onto the ring apron. Judgment Day interfered, allowing Balor to hit a shotgun dropkick and coup de grace for a false finish. They tried distracting again, but Priest kicked a chair into Balor's head. Balor countered 2 huge moves for another sling blade. He hit coup de grace to the back of Priest's head, and then another to his back or the back of his neck. And then literal seconds later, Priest caught a third coup de grace attempt for South of Heaven and got the 1, 2, 3 in 13 minutes. This was a really fun Raw match and a fine PLE match. Priest dominated the vast majority, with Balor not getting his runs until late. Now, look, Priest was the expected winner. We discussed this on the Ultimate Preview. We figured there was going to be a really big heel bend to the show. But the way he won this was so stupid. Such an unforced error. Not only did he overcome a 1-on-3 disadvantage, he took 3 of Balor's finishers, 1 regular with a kick out, and then 2 to his hunched over body, which apparently had no effect on him because he just immediately stood up to stop the third and win the match right away. Balor was destroyed by a single South of Heaven. Even if he did take a beating before that, it was spaced out where you're not remembering that he took 2 razor's edges because he's jumping up and doing 3 coup de grace in a row. Now, this made Priest look amazingly strong, but it made Judgment Day, Balor, and his finisher look like absolute shit. There was also nothing special about the match. Really, that's why I said it was a good Raw main event. The feud didn't stay hot coming into it, and while the fight was executed well from both guys, the wrestling was solid. You just kind of shrugged when it was over. You're like, oh, okay, Priest beat them 1-on-3 again, and the coup de grace is completely dead now. That should not be the case given the length of this storyline and the feud. That's why Balor ideally should have won. He needed this more. And Chris, now knowing the rest of the results on the show, right? I picked Priest to win here because I didn't think babyfaces were going to get more than 1 win on the entire program. They won the opening match and they won the main event. So Balor absolutely could have won here and it would have been completely fine. So look, based on expectations for the show, I'd say this actually fell under them a little bit. Nothing special at all. Something we've seen plenty of times. So therefore it gets an average grade. 3.5 stars and a B.
Yeah, I'm about right there. Nothing that really jumped out, except honestly that uppercut where I thought Priest hurt himself.
That was sick, yeah.
That was really, really well done. But the rest of it was like whatever. And you know these guys can do more. And again, the feud itself had kind of taken a backseat to Liv Rhea stuff coming in. And so, but it's the kind of result again where I think, are they going to kind of go their separate ways now? You know, with a lot of these matches, it's like, why do we still need to keep doing this now? Why did Roman and Cody need to do anything with the bloodline now moving forward? Why does Priest and Balor need to do anything together anymore? Rhea got disqualified, whether or not it was on purpose. She has a reason to stick around now, or at least figure that out. But it's like, all right, like, is that the end of it? Because we didn't get a moment.
Just to clarify, Liv got disqualified, not Rhea.
Right, but Rhea won.
She won.
I'm saying
she won the match. Yeah.
So Rhea's got a reason to say, "Hey, I deserve another match." There's a reason to continue that, but a lot of these there's not a really reason to continue.
There's no reason to continue Balor Priest, which doesn't make any sense because it doesn't seem like the storyline's going away, and Balor never got anything out of it. You know?
No, nothing. Literally nothing.
And that's why, Chris, I couldn't help but be totally underwhelmed coming out of both Judgment Day matches. This feud, all of them, was red hot after SummerSlam. And over the last 2 months, Creative has made so many mistakes dragging this down, with Bad Blood's booking being just as, if not more disappointing than anything that preceded it. I'm at the point now where I just want it over, and certainly do not want it going all the way to WrestleMania. We were talking about, they got to do Ripley and Dominic at WrestleMania. No, I don't want it anymore. Give it to me if you have to at, Survivor Series or maybe Royal Rumble or something, but I don't want that at WrestleMania because that means this storyline is going to go all the way to that. This wasn't enough to wrap it up, but at the same time, I don't want any more. I'm not saying it's all been bad. I'm not saying I don't care for the wrestlers. I'm not saying it will get automatic bads if the storyline continues on our Tuesday show. They've kind of lost my individual interest.
I think so too. I think you can easily bring it back. I just think they need to the storytelling creative needs to put the work back into it. You know, like that My Brother's Keeper thing from Balor was really good. Balor explaining it's because of what Priest did to him at SummerSlam a year ago was good. Like, there's a lot of stuff to go with there. They just kind of stopped doing it the last couple of weeks.
It's like all they gave Balor was costing Priest the title, and ever since then, it's just been nothing. Like, I guess they have no interest in building him up back into a main eventer, because nothing they have done with him since then has shown you that this guy's legitimate. And he's the leader of the faction, and he can beat Priest, and he can win matches, and it's just he gets beat down, and he needs people to help him, and he still loses. And he can hit 3 finishers, and he still loses. It's really frustrating.
Yep.
All right, let's move to the WWE Women's Championship. Nia Jax against Bayley. Let's start with SmackDown, because this was the only match on this entire card that actually got built on the Go Home show. Bayley called out Nia to open hour 2 of SmackDown, saying she doesn't understand the significance of the WWE Women's title and the legends who came before her. She said Jax has a chance for a dominant title run. She's already being a dominant champion, but there's 2 women who can take the title from her, Bayley on Saturday or Tiffany Stratton at any time. Tiffy took exception to the idea that she needs Money in the Bank to beat Nia, which obviously bothered Jax. Then Stratton accidentally referred to Bayley as her real name, Pam, and covered for her slight by saying she should bow down to Nia. She obviously scoffed at that, but said she would rather bow down to a queen than patronize a stupid bitch. And that was a hot line. There was a 3-way attack. Bayley actually got up on Jax using a briefcase. She hit it a few times. Then she hit a running knee. Stratton recovered and again approached Jax with the briefcase as the referee got in the ring for her match. Obviously, Nia noticed this, and she thought she was trying to cash in. Jax later confronted Stratton, suggesting she focus on Liv Morgan because a cash-in attempt against her might actually lead to her surviving. And she also made her promise she would never betray her. Tiffy immediately promised. You'll hear more about this on Tuesday's show, but SmackDown was extremely messy in the first hour. Bayley talking about Nia being a dominant champion was dreadful because she's held the title for 2 months and defended it 1 time against Michin. She's hardly been dominant. Maybe she misspoke, only meant in the future, but she said both present and future. Tiffy screwing up, I mean, that's rookie shit. The crowd ultimately got hot for Bayley because of her punctuating line. The backstage segment hit, but this left a lot to be desired, and it telegraphed the match, though we knew the outcome anyway.
Yeah, this was whatever. I mean, obviously wasn't that big into it coming in. I do think Tiffany accidentally said Pam.
Definitely.
I don't think that was said on purpose. Some people seem to think it was. Her reaction right away seemed to think it was not. Because look, these people don't call each other by their work names in real life unless you're Undertaker.
You only do that. You only do that in a situation where it enhances, like Drew calling CM Punk Phil would obviously.
Yeah, but also
that.
It's not like CM Punk's name is John and he's calling him Phil.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
she uses a different name. Right.
Yeah. So I really thought it was an accident and nothing I would be up in arms about.
Right. Now, before this match at Bad Blood, there was a shot of the hosts in a suite with Naomi supporting Bayley and Bianca giving her the side eye and a fake smile with 2 thumbs up, wishing her the best of luck. Back to the match. Bayley hit a leg drop on Jax near the ropes. Jax later reversed a corner powerbomb into like 25% of her hurricanrana, as much as she could do. Credit for the attempt. Plus a Bayley to belly on Bayley. She came back with a sunset flip powerbomb into the corner and a flying elbow. Jax powerbombed Bayley into the steel steps, swung her into the barricade, and hit a catch Samoan drop inside. It was like half executed. Bayley somehow responded in kind with the Samoan drop of Nia. Bayley kicked Nia, who fell straight on top of Jessica Carr, the referee, squashing her. Bayley came back with a cutter and a rose plant. That led Tiffy running down to the ring because the referee was out. She beat Bayley with the Money in the Bank briefcase and revived Jessica, only for Nia to sit up like the Undertaker, seeing the possible betrayal happen. Stratton assured her that she wasn't going to go through with it, and Bayley used the distraction for an O'Connor rule for a 2.9 false finish. Bayley climbed to the top rope. Tiffany distracted by throwing the briefcase at her. Jax grabbed Bayley for an avalanche Samoan drop and then hit Annihilator to retain the title in 16 minutes. Now, this was put in the death spot after Hell in a Cell, and I saw people with mixed opinions and opinions of this match that differ from mine. I thought this delivered so far above expectation from an excitement and entertainment standpoint that I was actually floored when the final bell rang. Bayley and Nia do have strong chemistry together. They work well. Yes, there were a couple slip-ups. Jax is not the best wrestler in the world still, and it wasn't as smooth as their SummerSlam match. There's no question about that. But holy shit, I saw people tearing this apart as botch city simply because 2 moves weren't landed 100%. Do you really expect Nia to do a full Hurricanrana? I don't. So, okay, they shouldn't have done this spot. They also could have executed it better. That was the biggest mistake. The Samoan drop was also missed a little bit, but it was followed by Bayley hitting one on Nia and then an avalanche version in the finish. So that was easy to overlook and forget. I'm giving it 3.5 stars in B again because, yes, it could have and should have been smoother, but I really enjoyed how the match was put together. And like I said, I thought the entertainment value of it was so far beyond the match quality or whether a move was botched or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I thought this was a great match. Like, I really enjoyed it. And they were in the unenviable spot of following up Drew Punk.
That made it even better,
know?
Right?
Yeah, and despite that, they delivered and had people ready to go and all that stuff. This was really creative. It was fun. It was a finish that made a lot of sense, and they executed it. And I was like, all right, like, I get that. So I thought this might be my second favorite match of the night behind the Hell in a Cell.
Oh man, I really liked Liv and Rhea. I just hated that finish so much. I think top to bottom, all things included, it was my second favorite of the night. I agree with you.
Yeah, the thing I was least looking forward to, so credit to them.
I was actually least looking forward to Balor and Priest just because the build was like non-existent at the end. You know? This I at least cared about. I mean, I cared. I thought because they had a good SummerSlam match. I was like, all right, let's do this again. Like, I'm down to see that again. So, but alas, it delivered, and maybe other things, of course, on the show did not. Now, you would think normally, hey, you guys just broke down all 5 matches. You're good to go. Au contraire, Monfrere, we got a lot more to talk about here. First, celebrities in the crowd. Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Bill Goldberg, Killer Mike, Jacqueline. Great to see her. Lillian Garcia, Booker T, X-Pac, DDP, Mickey James, Quavo, Lil Baby, Metro Boomin, obviously. Scott Steiner. Apparently, Rick Steiner was there, but they didn't want to put him on screen. Understandable for controversy reasons. But there are a lot of people in attendance at this show. And that actually plays into something we're going to talk about in a moment. But first, Triple H came out before the final 2 matches, took a pot shot at raising hell for WCW in Atlanta, and put over all of WWE's records set at Bad Blood, a mixture of ones, Chris, that you and I like to hear, attendance, and ones we don't like to hear, profit from the gate. Who gives a shit if you're a fan? He got light but clear boos talking about Saudi Arabia and Crown Jewel before making what was termed an historic announcement. He said the main men's and women's champions, so the WWE champion, the world champion, the WWE women's champion, and the WWE women's world champion, were going to be fighting each other at Crown Jewel, but without their titles on the line. Instead, up for grabs will be the new Crown Jewel Championships. And he unveiled the title, which I guess was only the men's title. It was enormous and gaudy, and frankly, stupid. The crowd did seem to react positively to the look of the belt, but not the announcement. And you know what? Let's put a pin in this right here.
0.0.
0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
Do I actually need to use words beyond that? Okay, here's some. Fucking horrendous decision. Another instance of WWE doing something no one wants just to satisfy their blood money overlords. They took a huge step forward with King and Queen of the Ring in May. They made that early show relevant and important and interesting. It was fantastic. This is a joke. Who actually wants this? Who was asking for this? Why are you going to beat 2 of your top champions for no good reason? Why are you going to do this 1 month ahead of Survivor Series, the historic spot for such matches? And why would you announce this in front of an American crowd that would rightly boo your partner? Why are you going to take your top 4 titles out of contention for a single premium live event? Why would you take a huge main event, presumably, and maybe they change, but they're not going to, like Cody and Gunther, and throw it away here? This didn't make Crown Jewel more important. It made it an obvious filler show. The title belt is gaudy, straight up ugly, and unnecessary. Hopefully, it's like the greatest Royal Rumble title that we only saw once and never again. You see it when the person wins, they hold it up, and that's it, disappears from TV. I do not want the winners carrying this shit around or anything like that. I'd still have hated it, but had they gone with a cup or a trophy of some kind, maybe it would have come across a little bit less ridiculous. But there's literally no silver lining here whatsoever. It's just awful. It's a terrible decision by WWE. By the way, they called this a historic announcement. It was historically shitty. Is this blood money belt the biggest L of the so-called Paul Levesque era? I think it might be.
It was a Tony Khan level historic announcement, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
If we're being harsh. So they first announced the WWE champion and the world champion will fight. And the crowd kind of gave a, ooh, like, yeah.
Like, that's kind of interesting. Cool. Yeah. What are you getting at here? Yeah.
Remember, they used to do that for Survivor Series for a number of years. They said, this is the only day a year you'll see people from Raw and SmackDown fight each other, even though that wasn't the case. But it was still cool to see Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar.
Absolutely.
I believe was the Survivor Series
it was.
match. I don't think Finn Brock was, but AJ Brock might have been.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've gotten some cool ones out of that. So like the idea of the two champions fighting each other, it's not a bad idea. So that's why, like, I would push back on you're taking your top 4 champions off your belts off the show, essentially. Because I mean, they used to do that for Survivor Series. That's not a different thing, and I think we're gonna get really cool matches out of it. But the belt is so freaking corny, man. Nobody's going to care about this thing. You mentioned the greatest Royal Rumble. I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, remember this thing the only thing we remember about the greatest Royal Rumble is Daniel Bryan getting torn to shreds and Titus O'Neil falling under the ring. Like, it didn't matter. I think Braun won it. Is that right?
Yes.
Do I have to? Yeah. So I guess I do remember that. But to hype it up on this show, to be like, here's a thing we're doing for Saudi Arabia. Just such a letdown. I'm not surprised the crowd didn't react because it's not going to mean anything. Also, what happens if whoever wins it then loses their world title at some other point over the next year?
They're going to. Yeah.
Does that person win the Saudi belt?
Well, that's the problem. It's not a belt that you defend. It's just a trophy. Just like the greatest Royal Rumble title was.
You know what it is? It's an Owen Cup belt.
That's exactly what it is. But that's it. If you're going to call it a championship, which is what they did, they called it the Crown Jewel Championship, then that means that theoretically you should be carrying it and defending it and like so on and so forth. But there's no need for that. And the belt literally looks ridiculous. It is so big and so ornate and so blood money, sports washing, obvious, right? If you had like a cool trophy or a cup of some kind and there was an area to engrave names on it or something like that, you could say, oh, they're going to like make something out of this and it's going to be prestigious in its own right and whatever the case. This was taking it to such a ridiculous level. And I know you mentioned, Chris, like you fought back a little bit against what I said. They did this all the time in Survivor Series. They did. And it was pretty interesting, but they also did it for everyone. The tag team champions fought each other. The mid-card champions fought each other, and so on, right? Here, they're only taking the top 4 titles, and they're saying none of these are going to be on the line, and these people are fighting for literally nothing. Like, rather than fighting for pride, which is what you were doing at Survivor Series, they're literally fighting because the Saudis want the best wrestlers to fight each other on their show. That's what they were telling us, basically.
Technically, they're fighting for what is the most important and most prestigious belt in the history of WWE. If you're going to have your 2 world champions fight for a belt on top of that, that makes this the biggest belt there is, technically.
I mean, what does it say about Gunther if Cody beats him? What does it say about Cody if Gunther beats him? Like, these are guys that you're trying to build up.
I don't mind that. I mind the stupid belt. And the belt is a title.
The belt is maybe the worst part of it, and the reasons why the belt is existing, yes.
To your point, though, that's why they moved away from doing that at Survivor Series.
It is.
Because they realized, hey, it's maybe not great to have our world champions take a loss for no reason.
Exactly, and it's why I've been critical. You mentioned AEW. They, over the last month and a half, I'm not even exaggerating, there's been like 12 or 13 matches where champions have fought champions. And it's just
and including one where one belt was only on the line for 20 minutes.
Right. And it's just like, it's mind numbing when you have a company that has hundreds of wrestlers employed and plenty of main eventers that you can utilize. Here's the other issue and why I pointed out that you're taking the top 4 titles off the show. Okay. It'll be the second PLE in a row in which neither the WWE Championship nor the World Heavyweight Championship will be defended. Gunther didn't even have a match on this show. Cody was in a tag team match. If Cody ends up in War Games, which we don't know whether that's going to happen. I'm just kind of speculating. That could be 3 in a row where the WWE Championship is not defended. This is your main guy. This is your main title. Like, what are you doing when it comes to that? That is why it's so frustrating for me. He could go from September 13th until potentially Saturday night's main event 3 months from now without defending his strap. Now, that's probably not going to happen because of the KO thing, what we talked about earlier and so on. But in terms of PLEs, that might actually be the case. That's a huge problem for a babyface fighting champion. So that's part of the reason why I'm kind of arguing against the fact that the title's not going to get defended on the show.
Yep, that's another good point. Yep, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to move off that negativity, and I think we're going to conclude this with positivity, at least from my side, and it is shocking positivity, I got to tell you. So continuing this segment, right after they drop this like bomb on us, and we're like, ugh, man, this sucks. Gunther comes out. He shits on Sami Zayn on the mic ahead of their match on Raw. And he mentions all the legends in attendance. And fans start chanting Goldberg. He spoke to Goldberg directly, saying he lied about him being one of his heroes because Goldberg was a one-trick pony as a wrestler. Louder Goldberg chants. Gunther then told Gage, his son, and didn't Colorado have a football game today? Why was he there? All right, that's a whole nother.
No, they don't.
Oh, they didn't? They were on a bye week? Okay. Then he told Gage, his son, that he hoped Bill was a better father than he was a professional wrestler. That got Goldberg out to ringside. A dozen security dudes ran out to prevent further aggression. Gunther said, Bill, I've got 3 minutes for you, which was hysterical. Sami attacked Gunther from behind. Thorough beatdown all the way up the ramp. Goldberg's theme played. Fans chanted for him at the end of this. Credit to Gunther, because, Chris, this was one of his best segments on the mic since he got called up to the WWE main roster. He was phenomenal here. It may have been his best segment because he was basically working on his own without anyone else to speak back to him. And now we have what I'm going to presume is a WrestleMania match. Gunther drops the title to Punk at some point in the next few months, goes on to fight Goldberg on the big show, basically a replacement for the Brock Lesnar match that never happened. Gunther theoretically gets a huge win over a legend on a big show. Goldberg gets a retirement match after being extremely dissatisfied with how his last work with WWE ended. Everyone is basically happy, except for fans who are going to be angry that Gunther isn't involved in a bigger match against a more notable modern opponent on the biggest show of the year. Building it with storyline, though, putting Goldberg's retirement on the line, Gunther hating him because he's the ring general, the mat is sacred, and Goldberg sucks between the ropes. It actually works, like, really well. Plus, they also hyped up the title match for Raw at the same time. I got to tell you, in 2024, if you told me Goldberg makes a surprise appearance and he's going to fight Gunther, if you told me this 3 months ago, I would have said, oh my God, is a certain someone back booking this? Like, what the hell is going on? I can't even believe I'm saying I thought this was extremely successful, and I actually think the match would be pretty good.
Well, we'll see. Everything you said there makes sense. Replaces the Brock Lesnar match and do all that stuff. My only thought is, did Gunther empty the clip in all the trash talking he did for Goldberg here?
Yeah. What else is he going to say? Yeah.
What is he going to say? He calls him a one-trick pony, talks about being a bad father. The funniest line is when he says something like, yeah, come on, Bill, I got 3 minutes for you.
It's unbelievable.
like unbelievable stuff. And to the point where, like, I don't know if they can do this every week, building up to a Mania match. I think that does make sense. It does, again, get Punk the belt. You do him Rollins main event of night one. I can totally see all of that happening. Mm-hmm. I'll say right now, I wouldn't mind it because this was hilarious. This was great. I really enjoyed it. I just don't know if they can match it because that's how good this was.
And by the way, like 3 minutes, they need 5 minutes, 6 minutes at WrestleMania. As long as Gunther wins, it's fine. Like, you have to protect Goldberg. And I think that'll be the difference here compared to previous times that we've seen him, where he was told to go out. He did a million different things. He concussed himself at one point backstage, and he went out and concussed himself again, and the match was shitty. He doesn't need to be doing crazy shit. You do the Brock Lesnar-Goldberg WrestleMania match, but with Gunther instead of Lesnar, and you have Gunther win. As long as that's the booking, I'm actually here for it, and I honestly cannot believe I'm even saying.
It could be good, for sure.
All right, so that officially wraps up everything that happened on WWE Bad Blood. That brings us to our grades. Before we get to the post-show grades, we're going to remind you what our expectation grades were on our WWE Bad Blood Ultimate Preview. Chris and I actually both agreed at 92 in A-. That's a 92 out of 100, I should say. And our Getting Overheads, all of our listeners and anyone else who found our poll on Twitter at Getting Overcast, they got their voice heard as well. 57% A, 40% B, 3% C, averages out to a 91 out of 100. So an A-, just a tad below us. Now, Chris, it is time for us to share our final grades for WWE Bad Blood. And as always, you get the opportunity to go first. So how did you grade WWE's final domestic premium live event of 2024?
B+. And without that Hell in the Cell, it would have been a B. Because Bayley Nia was great, but the rest of it, give or take, I couldn't really care less.
Mm-hmm.
But that, it was fine. Like, it wasn't actively bad. It was perfectly fine. And you got some fun Gunther Goldberg stuff. It would have been a B. But you throw in that, which should have been the main event, one of the best Hell in a Cell matches we've ever seen. That pushes up. That's the only thing that pushes it up to a B+ for me.
I completely agree with you. Usual, I hate when we agree because I hope that we have different takes. And the last time we did one of these, you said, hey, I'm going to be a little bit more critical than usual because we give a lot of A- and occasional low A's here, and it's pretty repetitive. So I was like, I'm going to give a B+, and I think Chris might be an A- here. So I'm going to be the opposite of him this time. No, I completely agree with you. Hell in a Cell ruled the night by a significant margin. I don't really count The Rock's return as part of like this process, again, because he didn't actually do that much. I look at the rest of the matches. Balor and Priest, you kind of throw away. We mentioned how Nia and Bayley, that we liked it probably a lot more than other people, but I was super, super entertained by it. And then Liv and Rhea, again, I'll repeat this like the third time. I loved 90% of that match. It was just like the last 10% that kind of made me sour. And then you actually kind of have the Blood Money belt announcement and the Gunther Goldberg segment that like canceled each other out. One was great, one was terrible. So that's like a wash completely, right? So even if I was going to downgrade it for the Crown Jewel Championship deal, I'd upgrade it for Gunther and Goldberg. So I'm right with you. I'm at a B+. I think it's the appropriate grade. You didn't give a number. I'm at an 88. I think it's a solid B+, and just not in the A range. If the booking had been a little bit better for the Judgment Day matches, I think it easily could have been an A-, but those really held the show back more than anything else.
Yeah, I thought the ceiling on the show was pretty high. It just didn't at all get there.
The ceiling was an A, I think. Yeah.
This felt below expectations after everything they had built up to this, and they put together a really good card. Again, would have liked to have one or two more matches on it, but what they had on paper was good. It just didn't live up to as big of a thing as they tried to make it feel. And so, yeah, if not for Drew and Punk, I'd be at a B for sure. A lot of potential here. Just didn't click on a lot of it.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Now let's hear from our Getting Overheads. They got the opportunity to vote in our post-show poll, again, on Twitter, at Getting Overcast. This is how it came in. 46.2% A+ to A, 39.2% A- to B+, 13.9% B to B-, 0.6% C+ or lower. And I actually think it's legitimate to have a C+ or lower if you just are going on average, right? If you think 4 matches weren't good and 1 was, and you're in the C range, like I can understand that. I disagree with it, but I can understand it. But Chris, this is probably the biggest difference between our grades and the listeners' grades ever. That averages out to a 93.2 out of 100, which is an A. So they graded this an A, a low A, the lowest possible A. Well, I mean, I gave it an 88. What was your number? I forgot. Or did you say it?
Whatever the lowest B plus is.
87 would be the lowest B plus.
Yeah. Look, maybe that's because, we were watching football. And
I don't think so. Maybe it was about moments for people, right? Like you got that great opener and you did get Jimmy Uso and The Rock at the end of the show. So even if the match wasn't great, I could see you thinking in terms of entertainment, okay, they opened and closed with A's. And then everything in between, if it's a B, then I guess maybe that's how they averaged it out. But I do think our listeners, for probably the first time ever, I think, since we've done these polls, are actually overrating the show. And you and I are probably appropriate. But hey, you can't argue with the majority. And they are the majority in this case. You and I are just you and I. But as I mentioned at the start,
This is my show. My show.
and that does carry a little bit of water as well. Chris, any final thoughts here on WWE Bad Blood before we wrap this up?
I'd like to see some world title matches. I know we're getting one on Monday, but these pay-per-views with tag team main events, like, come on, man. You got to give us more.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I was glad both women's titles were defended, but let's get these mid-card titles and tag team titles. I mean, I'm telling you straight up, dude, if they replaced Balor and Priest with that triple threat tag team ladder match from SmackDown, that main event, this is an A show.
Yeah, or put Sammy Gunther on here too.
Yeah, like give us more than 5 matches. Stop holding the tag team and all the mid-card titles for TV. Give us a little bit more of a variety when it comes to these pay-per-view cards. And again, elongate them from 5 to 6 matches. And we're probably having a different conversation. But again, let's remember, the B plus is not a bad grade. This was still super entertaining. A lot of great stuff happened. And that Hell in a Cell match was immensely memorable. Not going to forget that for a long time. Probably going to rewatch it before I go to sleep. Thank you all for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out, allow me to hit you with some quick reminders. First, our show
It's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we'll read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast for all the reasons I've already mentioned. Also, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. Become an official Getting Overhead. Support the show. You get bonus instant reaction audio to every major TV show and exclusive news and analysis on Fridays. BuyMeACoffee.com/Getting Over. Support the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Appreciate you, Chris, as always, jumping on the horn to break down WWE Bad Blood instant analysis style for vintage. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.